Hi there, and welcome to the Mindful Marathon podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Quirk, a run coach and pediatrician. Mindful Marathon is all about helping runners of all types to run their own race. Whether you are a seasoned runner or you're just getting started, I want to let you know that you're welcome here and that you're in the right place. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is for busy women physicians. So, if you are a woman physician who loves running, or you want to run, but you feel like your schedule makes it nearly impossible, this episode is for you. I know the feeling of long clinic days, night shifts, being on call, family responsibilities, charting that somehow never ends, in basket messages that find their way to you at all hours demanding a response. And at some point, many of us start to wonder, is it even realistic to train for a race while practicing medicine and having all of these responsibilities? I want to tell you today that not only is it possible, it can actually be one of the most powerful ways to protect yourself from burnout. So today's episode is called Running Between Clinic, Call, and Family, Run Training for Doctors Who Have No Time. Now, I remember a period in my career when I was very deeply burned out. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and really questioning whether I could keep doing this work for the long term. My first job out of residency was as a pediatric hospitalist at a community hospital that was about an hour commute from where we lived at the time. And I had finished my residency, moved to this new place, was newly married. My dad was diagnosed with lung cancer at the time, and I remember these long commutes going to this hospital. There were times when I would get to work, park in the parking garage, and just really question my life choices, start crying, and think, I'm going to go in and quit medicine and go work at Starbucks. And that went on for quite a long while. I was working day shifts, night shifts, weekends, holidays, right? The schedule was always changing, and that was really a challenging time amidst, everything that was going on with my dad. I was also studying for the board exams. Like it was all of the things all at once. And I just really didn't see a way forward in the career. And so enter running. That was really when I started running more consistently. I just decided that something needed to change and I wanted to get some exercise. And I I thought, running has a low barrier of entry. I already have a pair of running sneakers collecting dust in my closet. And I found myself talking to a patient and his family one night, all about healthy habits and exercise and good nutrition and all of these things that I talk about all the time. And I had this moment like, okay, you're talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk. And so that is how I laced on my running sneakers and started running. But what I found was that while I was running helped me to reconnect with myself outside of medicine. And that was the key. That was so important. And I didn't realize it at the time, right? It took me years to figure this out. But running wasn't another obligation on my to-do list, on the very, very long to-do list that summer and fall. Running gave me space to think and space to breathe and space to process hard days at work and hard days in my personal life. My dad passed away from cancer that fall, so it was really just a very difficult time. And over time, running has become so much more powerful than it was even back then. And it's really a way to build resilience. So I want to talk through a lot of the common barriers that my athletes tell me. So there are a lot of barriers to running for busy physicians, especially busy women physicians. Here's the reality I see over and over again when I work with women physicians who want to run. It's not a lack of motivation or a lack of discipline. It's a lack of time and a lack of predictability in the schedule to be able to train for something. So you might have clinic days that run late. That happens to me all the time. You might have night shifts. You might be switching around, as I was as a hospitalist, from day shift to night shift. You might have you might have weekends where you have to go and round in the morning and then you have to take call from home. You may have kids you're taking care of at home and kids you are needing to get to different sports practices and all of the different extracurricular activities that they are doing. And you may have a schedule that changes from week to week and month to month. And it's complicated. The scheduling is complicated. And traditional training plans for a variety of race distances sort of assume that you have a predictable schedule. And I remember when I started running and wanting to train for longer distance races, it was really a challenge for me to look at a training plan on paper and think, okay, how the heck am I going to do this? Where is this going to fit in? Because, one week I might be working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. Another week I might be working Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Another week I might be working Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And always the long runs were on the weekend days. So a long run on a Saturday or a Sunday. If you're working the weekend or if you're working a night shift on the weekend, how are you going to get that long run done? So yes, traditional training plans assume that you have a predictable schedule. And most physicians simply don't have a predictable schedule. So how do we get around that? Okay. I'm going to go through three strategies that we can use as busy women doctors to run in a way that fits with your life and doesn't cause you extra stress and doesn't cause you to feel like running is becoming a part-time job. So, strategy number one is that we want our training to be time efficient. One of the biggest misconceptions about race training is that you need huge amounts of time. And the truth is that many athletes can train for races, I would say from the 5K distance up to the half marathon distance, on about 3 to 4 runs per week, with the majority of those lasting 35 to 40 minutes in length. That's not a huge, huge chunk of time. Yes, I recognize we have to set aside the time to get those in, but you don't need to be training for hours on end each week for something like a half marathon. The shorter runs are still building your endurance. They are helping to support your long-term progress. They're improving your fitness. And if you are working towards speed goals, if you've got pace goals and speed goals for particular distances or a particular race, we put those in too. And those speed workouts don't have to be long either. We can fit a speed workout into a 40-minute chunk of time and really, pack the quality into that one workout so that we're getting the most bang for your buck in the shortest period of time. The key is consistency. I know I say that a lot on this podcast, but consistency will win out every time over everything else. And it's also not about being perfect. Like, it's okay if we miss some of the runs, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, I have worked with a number of athletes who are all different types of doctors, right? I've worked with hospitalists and surgeons and pediatricians like me who work in a primary care office, but everybody has nuances to their schedule in terms of like an ever-changing shift schedule, times of their shifts that are different. Some days we're working day shift, some days we're working night shift. We have different call schedules. Sometimes call means different things. Do you have to physically go into the office or into the hospital for call, or are you taking home call? So there's all of these different nuances and variables, but I've worked with a number of doctors with very challenging work schedules and family responsibilities, and we managed to figure out how to make this training plan time efficient to be able to get it done. Strategy number two is having a flexible training plan. So, the second key is flexibility. Many training plans will say things like, your speed workout is on Tuesday, your long run is on Sunday. But as I said before, this may not work, especially if you work a lot of weekends. It's probably not the best to try to fit your long run into this very busy weekend schedule you already have. Instead of trying to wake up at like 3 a.m. to get your long run in, can we put the long run on a different day? I remember when I first worked with my coach, Coach Billy, shout out to him. He asked me, well, what's your schedule? And at the time, I was working in the hospital and the shifts were changing every week. And so I think I took a screenshot of my schedule and kind of sent it to him. And he said, well, you can move these runs around. And I thought, oh, isn't that a wild thought? You can move, you can move the runs around with, some general rules on how to do that. You can have flexibility in your schedule so that a stock training plan isn't going to take all of these things into account. But you don't have to drive yourself crazy and wake up at 3 a.m. for your long run on a Saturday and then go to work and work, a 12-hour shift or a 24-hour shift and tire yourself out. What if you have off on Friday, could we do the long run Friday? Or if you have off on Monday, could we do the long run on Monday? So those are just some simple examples of how you can move it around. I encourage my physician athletes to think of training as a framework rather than a rigid schedule. So, if you, for example, miss a Tuesday workout, let's just say you wanted to get your run in on Tuesday morning, but you were on call from home Monday night, you got a lot of calls, you were really tired. You decided to sleep in Tuesday morning, no problem, and you say, Coach Michelle, I'm going to get my run in after clinic on Tuesday instead. Great. Well, Tuesday clinic runs late, as it often does, and you don't get the run in. Instead of viewing that like, oh, I failed to get this run in, we simply adjust. We adjust and we move on, we correct course and keep going. So it's important that we remember it's not a failure. We simply adjust and we move on. So the third strategy is a mindset shift. Physicians are often perfectionists, and we are trained to be that. And I understand why we have this tendency and why we are trained to not miss anything, right? We're very type A. We are great at following a plan. And that works really well in our profession. But sometimes when that carries over into our personal lives and into our running, it's not always the best thing. So that perfectionist mindset can make running harder than it needs to be. If a training plan says 5 miles, for example, and you fit only 3 miles in, your brain is going to tell you that you failed. But in reality, 3 miles is still progress. 3 miles is 3 miles, right? Sustainable running requires letting go of perfection and embracing being a little bit more flexible and a little bit more adaptable. The point here is that training does not need to be perfect. Showing up imperfectly still counts, and it counts well. So, to bring this back to why running helps burnout, running gives physicians something that medicine often does not, and that is space. Space away from the inbox and the in basket, space away from the stresses that are happening in the hospital, in the clinic, in the profession, of which there are many, many, many. Space to reconnect with your body and with your breath and with nature. And that space can be incredibly restorative. So, if you are a woman physician who wants to run or you want to train for a race, but you're not sure how to make it work with your schedule, I want you to know that it is absolutely possible. And it doesn't require sacrificing your career, your family, or your well being. Like I said earlier, we don't want running to become a part-time job. So this simply requires a smarter, more flexible approach to training, and that's exactly what I love helping physician runners to do. So, if you would like help in your running journey, please reach out to me. Check the show notes, and you can find me on Instagram at mindful.marathon and send me a DM, or head over to my website and click the contact me button. And I would love to connect with you and chat about how we can make training work in your busy schedule. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you would share this with a colleague or a friend in medicine who might need the reminder that movement and running can still be a part of their life. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the podcast so that we can reach and encourage others to tie on their sneakers and join us out there on a run. See you next time.